how many linguists take to screw on a light bulb, change a light bulb, something like that. So and I said so this was in relation to how would the answer hood operator that I presented, which says pick out the unique maximally informative statement, the one that entails all other true statements. And it does account for that. So it will account for the fact that you can name, if you say, so the example is how many eggs are sufficient to bake a cake. So if the recipe calls for 3 eggs, then 2 eggs are sufficient will be false, right? Because that's not enough. 3 is sufficient, 4 is sufficient, 5 is and ad nauseum. However, if 3 is sufficient, it entails that 4 will be sufficient. It entails that 5 will be sufficient, right? And so on. So 3 will be the answer, the maximally informative answer. However, so it captures that. The fact that it does not capture, which earlier versions of building maximality used to capture, Ruhlmann's and my own, was the negative island effect. Not negative island, what is it? So if you say how many books did she read? On one reading it's bad. How many books didn't she read? Well, if she didn't read 4, she didn't read 5, she didn't read 6. I think that's the example, right? How many books didn't John read? That's not there's something unacceptable about it, whether it's syntax or semantics. People have argued. So it's it is this one. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. We'll come to this later. And that's the one that it doesn't capture, because there's a way to answer it which should then make it good. This is typically supposed to be an argument adjunct asymmetry. Anyway, I won't go into that here. Yes.
So when we ask the question, don't we assume that there's a finite set
of num? Yeah.
The question is being asked.
So
then the maximal, can we determine the maximum number that
yes.
person brings?
Yeah. So the thing is, so there are 2 things there which one is that sentence becomes good if you have a finite set. So if you say who didn't John invite, sticking with the argument set, that's where it's very clear. Well, there are thousands of people you didn't invite, right? Who did you invite? You can look at the set of people who actually invited and give the maximal entity. But who didn't you invite is potentially too huge. And typically we say those are the contexts where they're delinked in the sense of a finite set. So who didn't invite, there's also, if the potential guest lists are 5 and you invited these 3, then the maximal entity is D plus E is the individual that you did. So delinking answers that question. But with numbers also, there are more, it's a slightly complicated issue with how many. But my point was that once you do maximal informativity, the simple solution in terms of not having a maximal number kind of falls by the wayside, because the lowest one that you didn't read will entail all the higher ones, right? So if you didn't read 3 books, you didn't read 4 books, you didn't read 5 books, so all you have to say is didn't read 3 books. And there have been solutions proposed. They're fairly they're interesting, and I think they're quite persuasive. But we will not be going into it here. I have summarized most of it in chapter 6 of my book, which I believe you have access to in some form or other. I don't need to know everything. But anyway, it's in chapter 6 and you can follow the leads, so there, you can make up your own mind. But that is a potential issue because it loses an explanation by shifting to this. But there are other things you get out of it. Okay, so any other questions from yesterday? So this is what I would like to do today. So this is now I'm looking at the second introduction handout, the one that says the left periphery. And I want to introduce just the basics of this notion of common ground. I think several of you are already know this theory. So is the word common ground in context set? Who has not heard of it? Okay. Yeah, okay. So that's good. Okay, so that we let us go through, some of the essentials. You can read up more. That enough that I need to do this stuff. And yes.
Before you go, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So, with the questions which are not really questions, so we had in this handout, and yesterday you were talking about the echo questions, right? There are two types of it. One is disbelief, and the other is like repeat. So, in the repeat thing, I didn't even get that in my syntax class, and it is triggered by the discourse. It has a different intonation, but you're still asking for the information.
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
So how is it like really not a question?
Okay, so Archana? Oh no, I'm just trying to remember names, not super successful. And Vyom? Okay, it's just a way to remember names. Okay, so here's a question about echo questions. Echo questions are extremely interesting. So, your name is? Gargi. Okay. So, Gargi, you did not study echo questions in syntax, you're saying?
We did.
Uh-huh.
Even then, I didn't get how is it not.
How is it not a question? Okay, good. All right, so it is a question. And we're going to use echo questions in a significant way later. But here's the sense, let's put it like this, it's a different kind of question. Okay? And this is why, I'll give you two reasons. The first one is we've been looking at this answerhood operator, right? This answerhood operator says, give me the set of propositions, it says, give me a set of propositions and I'll pick out